Greetings, warrior. The gauntlet has begun, and you might be wondering, what do I do and how do I get my results? Well, today I'm going to be diving into the gauntlet guide that is found within each one of the quests inside of the gauntlet app. If you don't have access to the gauntlet app, make sure you are you opening up your email so that you have access and you can set up your account before continuing this video. Otherwise, you won't be able to apply what I'm going to be saying. And that's going to be most important before we dive into what I'm going to be going over now. So in this video, I'm going to be going over the tutorial, briefly going over the tutorial simply because it's a step-by-step process that's going to take you a little bit of time to do some of the activities and to set things up the way that is going to work best for your busy schedule and your lifestyle. So it's going to be a little bit independent when it comes to going through the tutorial, but I will kind of go over it briefly. But the main point of this video is going to be about alchemy. This is going to be one of the single most important things for you to focus on in the very beginning of the gauntlet before you're even doing anything. Remember, the gauntlet is a training action role-playing game experience. So the emphasis is training. So majority of the progression is going to be in a lot of factors and a lot of variables related to training. So nutrition and alchemy is not the primary focus of this experience, but it is an important part for your success in this experience, and making sure that you're following the alchemy program provided is going to make sure that you have the foundation for long-term success here in the gauntlet. So let's dive into the details. So as you can see, we have the table of contents, and you can quickly go to the tutorial by clicking any of the links inside of the table of contents. So there's a couple steps. I made sure that there was a simple step-by-step process for you to get completely started. Number one, taking measurements, really kind of going over the day-to-day practices as far as weigh-ins, setting up your weekly average and things like that. Forging your arsenal, making sure you have the right tools for you to perform the workouts here inside the gauntlet. Remember, each workout, or each quest, I should say, is based on your skill level. So based on your skill level, it's going to give you the opportunity to choose which exercise to do for each individual battle. This will make a lot more sense once you complete your first quest. But just know that you may be limited by certain pieces of equipment, and that's okay. This training experience is only requiring bare minimum equipment. I would even probably say only resistance bands for certain movements, even at the lowest difficulty level. So just so you know, if you want to continue progressing in difficulty, then make sure you are opening yourself the opportunity to by having access to certain pieces of equipment. Other than that, setting up your weekly schedule based on what you are capable of doing. Remember, every workout is not mandatory. But we do try to push for the 4 major strength quests inside of the gauntlet. And these are the upper and lower body quests. So try to prioritize at least 4 days out of the 7 days to these resistance training workouts, because these are going to have the most profound impact on your strength, your body composition, fat loss, muscle building, depending on what your personal goals are. Discover your strength. For those of you who are rank 4 and higher, this is getting your estimated 1 rep max. That's going to be important for your combat training. The nutrition codex, determine your maintenance calories. This is something that we're going to be covering in the alchemy portion. So we're going to be pretty much going over step 5, the alchemy wisdom, get your macros. Step 6, elixir of energy, get your calories. Step 7. And then last but not least, quick tip, step 8, sharing your combat training videos. Myself, along with the other Infinite Wizards, are inside of the gauntlet. So we are certified experts in pain-free performance, strength and conditioning, and much, much more. So we have the skill sets to provide you with feedback on your form and technique. So if you are new to exercise, this is a perfect opportunity to get valuable feedback to improve your technique, which can prevent injury and improve your performance. And for those of you who are highly experienced, getting that minor tweak can have a profound impact on your performance as well when you get that outside perspective of somebody or multiple people who have the experience of analyzing exercise form and technique and optimization. But let's get straight to, and I do also want to mention step 9, can't forget that, navigate the labyrinth, which is the Train Heroic app. So let's go to the alchemy portion now, where we can dive into the step-by-step process. So this is, again, do not skip this. This is, again, could define your overall progression here. If you only focus on training, will you make progress? Sure. But if you want to maximize your progress here, nutrition is going to be equally as important, especially the mental component as well, which I'll cover in many of the other videos as I'm going through the gauntlet as well. So most importantly, we want to start with a 20% deficit. Again, if you don't really know what a deficit is, it's basically burning more calories than you're consuming. So we want to make sure you're 20% below maintenance. What maintenance is real simply, it's the amount of calories or energy that you're burning and consuming so that your body weight remains relatively the same in your body composition and your body fat percentage. So we want to be 20% below that line. And part of the reason why is, number one, for the fat burning program, we want to burn fat. That's one of the physiological responsibilities and requirements for fat loss success. Next, prioritize protein. So high protein intake is essential to preserve muscle mass while losing fat. We want to implement refeed days as well. So you want to use specific instructions for refeed days in each phase, which we do provide. Again, a refeed day is a strategic day where you're increasing carbohydrates and you're lowering your fat intake, and you're slightly increasing your calories. And this is for a number of different reasons when it comes to metabolic health, hormonal levels, and just mental sanity throughout the fat loss process, which can all be affected because of being in a calorie deficit. And then number 4, track body composition. Besides tracking weight, use methods like body measurements or body fat percentage calculators to monitor changes in body composition. Something that I'm personally doing is I'm primarily doing scale measurements every single morning, just like the tutorial goes over. But my scale also has body fat measurements as well. It's not accurate. It's not supposed to be accurate, but the primary purpose of it is to measure the trends along your journey. So if your body fat percentage, whether it says 16, 17, 20, 25, 30, whatever it may be, if you see that number going down over time, that means you're losing body fat, right? And that's pretty much what we want to measure throughout the process here. So all that being said, and also I do want to mention is once I do find my measuring tape, I'm also going to take measurements as well. That's also something that I highly recommend because you're throughout the training process you could gain muscle, and it will be very valuable for you to know where you gained muscle, and also if your weight doesn't have drastic changes, it would be really, really good to know that, hey, you built muscle and then you also lost weight and body fat if you measure your body fat percentage, whether that's DEXA scan, whether that's scale, whatever that may be for you. So the first phase is the incendiary initiation. This is for weeks 1 through 3 here. If you are in the minus 1% body weight per week challenge, this is going to be the entirety of the challenge. So this is going to go through weeks 1 through 4, simply because we don't have enough time to transition into another phase for the challenge, since the challenge is only 1 month long. The goal for this phase, as well as the challenge, is to kickstart fat loss, adaptation to reduced calorie intake as well, and preserving muscle mass. That's the big thing. We are not crash dieting. The whole point is not to severely restrict yourself and force yourself to lose weight. We are trying to start up a sustainable and progressive, an achievable and realistic fat loss approach here this month that you can continue beyond the challenge or going into the next phase if you are in part of the gauntlet. So for the approach, like I mentioned before, we want to maintain a 20% deficit, and let's work together now to kind of, as I kind of walk you through setting up calories and macros. So for me, it is, so basically the recommendation is 1.2 grams per pound of lean body mass. Now, the only way to know your lean body mass is if you are tracking your body fat percentage. If you don't know what your body fat percentage is, again, I recommend getting a DEXA scan. Of course, if it's too expensive or you don't have the time to do all of that, what you can do is you can get a rough estimate. You can honestly just Google search some body fat percentage examples, and you could just kind of pick like, I think I kind of look like this person. That's probably going to be your best bet. But basically, in order for you to calculate your lean body mass, you do need to know your body fat percentage. So based on the data that I have and that I've calculated, I'm approximately, just based on my recent progression here, I have been fluctuating in between I would probably say 13 to 16%. And if I were to kind of chart this information as well, this is how I'm charting it. I'm using INFITNITE's mentorship app. As you can see, my body fat percentage has been trending downwards recently, so it's kind of fluctuating. If you can see this, let me go back here. It's been hovering consistently around that 12 upwards to 16, so it seems like it's a little bit around here. So I'm just going to say, for example purposes, I'm about 14%. Okay, so if I'm at 14%, and as of today, as of day 1 of the challenge, I am currently at 191.8 pounds. It may be different if you are in kg, by the way. I highly recommend you go per pound, because my example is 1.2 grams per pound of body weight, or per pound of lean body mass for protein. So with all that being said, if I were to do some math here, if we were to go 14% times my current body weight, which is 191.8, 191.8 times 14%. Give me 1 second here. Eight times 14%. That's about 26.85 pounds in body fat. Okay, and basically what you need to do is you need to subtract your current weight by the amount of fat mass that you have. So I'm going to take my current weight, which is 191.8 minus 26.8. And we got 165. So that is approximately the amount of protein that I need to be hitting consistently on a day-to-day basis. So that's one of my macros, 165 grams protein. Okay. Now, basically what we want to do is fats are super simple. You just take 0.3 grams per pound of body weight for fats. So for fats, I'm taking 191.8, which is my current body weight. I'm taking 0.3 grams of that, and that leaves me with 57. Let's just say, we'll round down since we're focusing on fat loss. 57 grams allocated for fats. And basically what we want to do is the remaining is carbs. Now there's two missing variables that we need to figure out. Obviously is carbs, but also calories. Okay, so how do we figure out calories? Well, I mean, we can go into a rough estimate, or we can actually use a calculator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a calculator so we can get a rough estimate of the amount of calories that we need to be in or have to be in a deficit. So let me share my screen here. Okay. We're going to be using Legion Athletics calculator here. So basically, you're going to be inputting your own data here. I'm going to put my current weight here, 191.8. I am currently 31, 5'11". Dang it. And this is where it kind of gets a little tricky when it comes to activity level. So in my opinion, I'd say put your current activity level, because if you increase your activity level, that's also going to increase your daily energy expenditure, which is the amount of energy that you're expending throughout the day. And if that is too high, then your deficit, it might be also too high as well. So it's always better to kind of start low and then increase if necessary. And again, this is just a starting point. This is, again, not going to be what your calories and macros are going to be throughout the whole entire experience. This is something that you want to be monitoring based on your progress. So if you're noticing throughout the week, maybe multiple days, maybe you had 2 days in a row or even 3 days in a row where you're not seeing weight loss, then that just means that your calories and your macros might not be at the right level, especially if you are doing the combat training inside of the gauntlet. So always go back to this calculator and make adjustments if necessary. Again, the trigger should be based on your progress. If you're consistently making progress, then you're great. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So what I'm going to do, just for example purposes here, I'm just going to go a little bit in the middle. I'm going to say some. So I'm basically working out between 4 to 6 hours. I would even probably say I'm doing a little bit, but just again, for example purposes, I'm just going to stick with some as a starting point. So based on that, what we want to be doing is we want to be primarily in a moderate deficit. Okay, so this is kind of where we want to be, about that 1 pound per week-ish. And for me, if I were to just look at this, we are looking at one important thing, and that is going to be the percentage here. So as you can see, this is 81%, and this is moderate. This is pretty much what we want to focus on for the gauntlet, is a moderate deficit. We don't want to go into an extreme deficit. We want to have manageable, realistic, and sustainable weight loss. This is not transform completely in 4 weeks. Again, that's not realistic. If you want to do that, I recommend 4 months and through our other game modes, or like the gauntlet for the long term, or our academy or mentorship. But again, when we're setting up our calories and macros, we want to hit that moderate level, and we want about 20%. So this is kind of like the sweet spot for me. Around 2275 is where is a good calories for me to be in a deficit. So if you're doing this, again, we want to lose weight. We want to be at about a 20% deficit. For me, this is the magic number right here. So this is what you want to be looking at after you put your information in. Cool? Let's jump back to my PDF here of the gauntlet. So we have protein, we have fats, we have calories. Last but not least, we have carbs. So how do we get your carbs? Again, we got 3 out of the 4 variables. What we need to do is we need to get the amount of calories of protein that you have. So you want to take the amount of protein in grams that you want to eat as a goal. For me, it's 165. And basically, I'm multiplying that by 4, which is what each gram of protein is made out of, 4 calories. So that's going to be 165 times 4, so that's 660 calories in protein. We then want to do the same thing for fats. For fats, it's multiplying that by 9 calories per gram of fat. For me, that's going to be 57. So it's going to be 57 times 9. Again, for me, that's 513 calories. And basically what we want to do, last step here, is we want to add both of those numbers together. Because again, we want to see how much calories we have left for carbohydrates. So for me, that's going to take 660 plus 513, and that's going to equal 1,173 calories. Okay? And now what we can do is we just subtract my calorie goal for me to be in a 20% deficit that we just used and just acquired using the calculator, which again for me is 2,275 calories. So I'm going to put that in the calculator. 2,275 minus 1,173, and I get 1,102. So I have 1,102 calories that I can add specifically for carbohydrates. So now that we have that, how many grams of carbs can I eat? Well, we simply just divide by 4, because there's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. So we divide that by 4, and we're looking at around 275 grams of carbohydrates. Yes, you can consume carbs and lose weight. Yes, it is possible. And I'm going to show you. So if your carbohydrates, for example, seem very high for you, that's okay. You can always allocate your carbohydrates and fats differently. So again, if you don't feel comfortable consuming super high amount of carbohydrates, maybe it's double the amount that you're currently consuming, then feel free to allocate some of those calories and carbs to fats. Okay. Also, too, don't be afraid to allocate some of that to protein as well, because at the end of the day, the most important thing for you to focus on is primarily the amount of calories that you're consuming. We want to make sure that you're staying in a calorie deficit. So, however way you want to rearrange your carbohydrates and fats is up to you. We are basing our nutritional philosophy around the style of training that we're doing, which again, we are doing strength training, primarily functional strength training, 4 times a week. So we want to make sure that we're performing at our best and we're recovering optimally with plenty of carbohydrates. And we're also wanting to make sure that we're maintaining a calorie deficit in the process. So all that being said, my macros are going to be 165 grams of protein, 57 grams of fats, 275 grams of carbs, and 2,275 calories per day. Again, starting point, basically the approach is to simply follow the tutorial and follow the step-by-step process of that we outlined here in the gauntlet guide of weighing yourself consistently and tracking your progress. I'll be showing you on a week-to-week basis my progress and how I'm tracking it, again via how Infinite and our wizards monitor our warriors' progress through mentorship mode. I'm going to show you how I'm combining that to enhance the gauntlet experience. And ultimately, again, it's going to be about optimization, minor tweaking when it comes to nutrition. But just know that once you do this, this is the hardest part right here, is understanding how much to eat. It's the hardest thing, and that's what we're going to be teaching you throughout the gauntlet challenge and just throughout the gauntlet experience in general. So hopefully you got a ton of value out of it today. This is very, very important, underrated when it comes to calculating macros. It's not fun, right? Numbers is not fun for everybody. But once you kind of get it over with and the headache is out the way and you just know what the numbers that you want to be focusing on a day-to-day basis, you just set it and then you forget about it, right? And then based on your progress, that's when you want to focus on it again and make, again, minor adjustments. We basically did 80% of the hard work. So congratulations, specifically in the alchemy nutritional category. But the other major hard work is also going to be through the training and compliance, making sure adherence is at a high enough level. Simply because, like, if you don't follow the plan, you don't stick to the program, it doesn't matter all the calculations, the numbers, the nutritional goals that we set. If we can't follow through and execute on these goals that we set out, then getting results consistently, especially the 1% of your body weight per week, which is inside of the challenge, may be difficult for you. So all that being said, if you have any additional questions on setting this up or need any additional assistance, make sure to post inside of the Gauntlet app, and feel free to reach out to myself as well if you'd like a deeper dive or an outside look, an extra pair of eyes on the goals and calorie goals that you've calculated. This is Master Wizard Walt, and I'll see you inside the Gauntlet, Warrior.